am 76 years old, and I am standing in my dining room at dusk, staring at a chair that nobody has sat in for 2 years. The table is set for one placemat, one glass, one fork, one knife, one napkin folded the way I fold it, which is wrong. She always folded them into triangles, and I fold them into rectangles, and I never knew that mattered until there was nobody left to fold them differently. There are 4 chairs around this table, 3 of them pushed in neat and tight, flush against the edge. But the 4th one, her chair, is pulled out slightly, angled toward the table, like someone just stood up and forgot to push it back. She didn't forget. She just never came back to push it in, and I haven't touched it. I can't. That chair has a cracked backrest, hairline fracture running right through the middle of the wood. Been there for years. And one of the legs is loose, the front left one. If you press the chair, even gently, it wobbles, makes this soft, tired groan against the hardwood floor, like a complaint, like something asking to be fixed that was never fixed. I press it sometimes, just one finger on the seat, and it rocks, and the dust on the seat shifts in the evening light, and the room smells like lemon polish and nothing else. Lemon polish and silence. Those are the 2 things that live in this house now. I spent 34 years winning every argument in this room, every single one. And the trophy for winning all of them is a table set for one, and a chair nobody sits in anymore. Let me tell you about the lie I told myself, because it's probably the same lie you're telling yourself right now. The lie was this: being right means being in control, and control means the family is safe. If I could correct every wrong statement, fix every flawed idea, outlogic every emotional argument, then the house would run properly. The family would function. Everything would be in order. I treated every disagreement like it was a threat, not to us, to order itself. My wife would bring something up at dinner, something about the spending, something about the kids, Something about feeling lonely, even though I was sitting right across from her. And I'd hear it not as a feeling, but as an accusation. And I would respond the only way I knew how, like a lawyer, like opposing counsel had just presented a weak case, and it was my job to dismantle it. The dining room would smell like roast chicken and tension. She'd start talking, and before she finished her second sentence, I was already preparing my rebuttal. Not listening, preparing. There's a difference. A big one. One requires your ears. The other requires your ego. I'd interrupt. I'd correct small details. That's not what happened. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. I'd rephrase her words back to her with surgical precision until she contradicted herself. And then I'd point out the contradiction like I was presenting evidence to a jury. Calmly, never yelling. That was the trick. I rarely raised my voice. I didn't need to. My voice was a scalpel, not a hammer. I could take apart everything she said without ever sounding angry. And because I didn't sound angry, I told myself I was being reasonable. She learned to start every sentence with a shield. Maybe I'm wrong, but I might be overthinking this, but this is probably stupid, but she'd surrender before the battle even started. And I mistook those white flags for respect. I thought she was acknowledging my authority. She was protecting herself from the cross-examination she knew was coming. My kids ate quietly. I remember that now with a clarity that makes my stomach turn. Forks against plates, eyes down, chewing fast. They didn't participate in dinner. They survived it. They learned that speaking at the table meant risking being corrected, being challenged, being made to feel small by a man who thought he was teaching them to think critically. I thought a quiet table meant a disciplined home. It didn't. It meant everyone was afraid to speak. And the man who caused that fear was the last one to know. Because frightened people don't explain their fear to the person who frightens them. They just go silent. And silence, to a man like me, sounded like winning. Now let me tell you about the night I won the last argument. The one that cost me everything. It was winter. January. Our 31st anniversary. Not that we'd celebrated. I think I'd said happy anniversary that morning over coffee. And she'd said thank you. in that careful voice she'd been using for years. The voice that doesn't give you anything to argue with. We were sitting at this table, right here. These chairs. The overhead light was on. That harsh ceiling fixture I never replaced with something softer. Something she'd asked about twice, that I'd called an unnecessary expense. It cast hard shadows across the table, the kind that make everything look clinical. The plates were between us. She'd made something. I don't remember what. I don't remember because I wasn't paying attention to the food. I was paying attention to what she was about to say, because I could tell she'd been building up to something all day. I could see it in the way she held her fork, carefully, like she was gripping a railing before stepping onto ice. She put the fork down. She leaned forward. And when she leaned forward, the chair did what it always did. That loose front leg tapped the floor. A small wooden click. I'd heard that sound 1,000 times. The sound of her leaning into a conversation she was afraid to have. She said she thought we should see someone. A counselor. Someone to help us talk to each other. She said it gently. She chose every word, the way you choose steps through a minefield. Careful, measured, ready to stop if she hit something. I hit back immediately. We don't need a stranger telling us what's wrong. She tried again. She said it wasn't about what was wrong. It was about learning to hear each other. She said she felt like she was talking into a wall, and the wall kept telling her she was talking wrong. I told her that was an exaggeration. I told her I listened to everything she said. I told her if she communicated more clearly, she wouldn't feel unheard. I told her, and I can still hear myself saying this, if you built a stronger argument, I wouldn't have to correct you. She tried one more time, leaned forward again. The chair tapped the floor. The faucet in the kitchen was dripping. This faint, rhythmic plink against the stainless steel that sounded loud because everything else was so quiet. The radiator in the corner clicked and hissed the way old radiators do, like metal breathing. I countered everything she said, point by point, calm, measured, devastating. I was surgical. I was thorough. I was right. And then she stopped. She didn't stop abruptly. She stopped the way a candle goes out when the wax is gone. Slowly, the flame just lowering, lowering, and then nothing. She sat back in her chair. Her hands, which had been gripping the edge of the table, unfolded and settled in her lap. Her shoulders dropped, not in relaxation, in release. The kind of release that isn't peaceful. The kind that happens when someone lets go of a rope they've been holding for 31 years and finally accepts that no one is on the other end pulling them up. She looked at me, and the expression on her face was something I had never seen in 31 years of marriage. It wasn't anger. I knew her anger. I'd cataloged it, studied it, learned to neutralize it. It wasn't sadness. I'd seen her sadness and dismissed it as sensitivity. This was something else. This was emptiness. A flat, open, barren expression, like a field after a fire. Nothing growing, nothing burning, just ash. She said 5 words. No inflection, no tremor, no fight. You're right. You're always right. She stood up. She pushed the chair in, and it wobbled against the floor, that loose leg groaning one last time. And she turned and walked down the hallway toward the bedroom. She didn't slam the door. She closed it. A soft click. The kind of click that's worse than any slam, because a slam means there's still energy. A click means the decision is made. I sat at the table. Her plate was untouched. The food was cold. The faucet dripped. The radiator clicked. And I sat there in the silence of my victory. And I felt something I couldn't identify then, but I can name now. It was the feeling of winning a game that the other person has just quit forever. She left on a Tuesday, 2 years ago. No explosion. No screaming, no scene. She came downstairs with 1 suitcase. 34 years of marriage, and she fit her departure into a single bag. That tells you something about how much of herself was still left in this house. She stood in the hallway and said 6 words. I don't have any fight left. I opened my mouth instinct, muscle memory. 34 years of rebuttal loaded in my throat like a round in a chamber. And she did something she had never done in our entire marriage. She held up her hand, palm out, steady, and she said, "Don't." One word, and it stopped me. The first time she'd ever stopped me, because it wasn't a challenge. It wasn't an argument. It was a woman telling a man she was done. And the word "don't" wasn't a request. It was a wall. She drove to our daughter's house. Divorce papers came by certified mail. I read every clause. I almost contested every single one. Habit, instinct, the need to find a flaw in the opposing argument. My lawyer said, "Just sign it." I argued with him too. The chair is still where she left it, pulled out, angled. The loose leg is worse now. It barely holds. I sit across from it every evening. I eat dinners that taste like nothing at a table set for one. The house makes sounds I never heard when her voice was in it. Pipes groaning behind the walls. Wind leaking through the window frame in the kitchen. The clock in the hallway, ticking seconds that don't matter to anyone but me. I press the chair sometimes. One finger. It rocks. That small, wooden creak. That sound is the only voice left in this dining room. And I realize now, sitting here, that the wobble was always there. She sat in that broken chair for 34 years, and I never fixed it. The same way I never fixed a single thing she told me was broken. Not the chair, not the marriage, not her heart. I was too busy being right to be useful. Now I'm talking to you. You, the one watching this right now. The one who paused for half a second when you read the title, because something in it hit a nerve you don't want to touch. You're doing it right now, aren't you? She said something last night about how she felt, about something that hurt her, about something she needed, and you corrected her. She brought up a feeling, and you brought up a fact. She said, "I feel like you don't listen," and you said, "That's not true. I listen all the time," which is itself proof that you don't listen, because you just told her that her feeling was wrong. You think you're winning. You're not. You're emptying her. One argument at a time. One correction at a time. One, well, actually, at a time. You are draining the woman across from you of every reason she has to keep leaning forward in that chair. Tonight, I want you to do something that will feel like losing. I want you to shut up, not respond, not rephrase, not fix, not counter. When she talks, let the words land. Let them sit in the air without swatting them down. Let her finish a sentence, a whole sentence, without your voice cutting in to adjust it. You don't need to agree. You just need to hear her. There's a difference between hearing and preparing your next argument. And that difference is the distance between a marriage and a courtroom. The chair still wobbles when I touch it. It moves like she's still leaning forward, still trying one last time to be heard. But she's not trying anymore. She's gone.